I finally got around to watching the Toxic Avenger reboot that came out around this August, and I have not seen it right when it came out because I was unemployed, but so I'm basically late to the party, so better late than never. But pretty much everyone was late to the party because this film is technically a 2023 movie and not a 2025 movie. Because this film had struggled to find a distributor, which was why it took forever to actually come out and be widely available. Like, sure, this film came out at film festivals and events, and people actually reviewed the movie. So there were people that watched it back in 2023. Like, this movie was still rated R and always had been rated R, because one thing about making a violent or an ultra-violent or a highly sexual movie is there's the NC-17 rating, which, if a movie's like so violent or has lots and lots of nudity, like, it gets an NC-17, and that's the MPA rating worse. That's more severe than R. Like, the difference between rated R and NC-17 is rated R means under 17 there needs to be some caution involved with the rated R. Like, it doesn't prevent people tell you to, no one under 17 should watch this movie because it's rated R. It doesn't mean that, but it means under 17 needs some guidance and it needs caution. But NC-17 means you gotta be 17, because if you don't, you'll go out and shoot people. Like, that's what NC-17, like, NC-17, you definitely gotta be 17. But rated R means you gotta be 17, I recommend it. But if you're 15 or 14 or whatever, you can still watch it, but do it with caution. Do it cautiously. That's what the difference between R and 17. So, and most distributors and movie theaters don't show movies or distribute movies, and retailers like Walmart or Target don't sell DVDs and Blu-rays of movies rated NC-17. So that's why film studios and directors try to, when they make ultra-graphic movies, they make sure it's rated R. So the Toxic Avenger reboot, it's still rated R, but it still struggled to find a distributor. Because this reboot is $200 million, cost a $200 million movie to make, because in order for a movie at $200 million to be profitable, it has to make around at least $600 million at the very least to be profitable. Because, like, a movie needs to make 2.5 times its budget, because the film's budget is usually the cost to make the movie, and there's a separate budget to market and distribute it. So it needs to make 2.5 times its budget in order. And if it needs to be profitable, it needs to make $600 million, which which this is a trauma movie, and it's ultra gory and all graphic, and Trauma is definitely not known for making four quadrant movies, because Trauma is known for making low budget, ultra vulgar movies like The Toxic Avenger and Tromeo and Juliet and Surf Nazis Must Die, and not like Trauma is definitely not known for making four quadrant movies, and because they appeal to a niche audience. So it did make sense why studios were afraid to distribute it, because they would lose money, because trauma movies don't have a wide appeal like Marvel movies do or Star Wars does, and 200 million is a lot of money to be spending on a movie that appeals to a much more specific community of people, like that this group of people enjoy. And also, we live in a climate where entertainment that may have been acceptable in the 80s or 90s or early 2000s, that may be acceptable in those decades, may not be acceptable today in that type of climate. So it may contribute to that. But anyway, what do I think of this reboot, and is it worth seeing? This reboot is a fantastic movie. Like Toxic Avenger 2023 or 2025, whatever, is a great reboot. And it's not a remake. And this is a reimagining of the 1984 version of The Toxic Avenger. Like, the first movie is a classic, a cult classic. Like, what made the first movie so funny is it has this low-budget charm, sure to it, but it also has logic of a comic book written by a 10-year-old, which converted into a live-action movie. Like, the way the characters speak. Like, it has similar logic to my Captain Naked comics I wrote as a kid. There's already a Captain Naked, like, Dr. Manhattan, but it has similar logic to that. That's basically the best I can explain, which I don't have them anymore, but I can't show that on YouTube anyway. But it has logic. The first movie has logic of a comic book written by a dumb 10-year-old. That's why the earlier movies, the older movies of The Toxic Avenger were so funny. That's one of the reasons why. Like, they're so stupid, they're awesome. This film is a completely different story on its own. Like, yes, this film has little bitty references to it, like for a little bit, like it shows the theme song from the original films, like bum 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 bum. Like, yeah, it has that, but this is a new story. So this film does not have Melvin Ferd, the alter ego of the original Toxic Avenger. Like, the original nerd character. Like, it's not that nerd character, but it's starring a younger actor. It's not that. It is a new character starring Peter Dinklage as Winston Goose, who is a janitor at a chemical plant. And he becomes a Toxic Avenger after he gets dropped into toxic waste, and that's how he becomes a Toxic Avenger. So, new story, completely new story, and this time the Toxic Avenger has a stepson from a girlfriend who passed away. So, that's the story. That had nothing to do with the original Toxic Avenger. Like, this is a modernized reimagining of the original Toxic Avenger, which I like that they just didn't just tell the story of the original movie, but modernized or anything like that. Like the film tells a completely different story. It is a reimagining of the original Toxic Avenger with a higher budget, and it's modernized. There's social media and cell phones, and it's a modernized Toxic Avenger. This film has really stupid humor like the first Toxic Avenger, and it had the absurdness of the original Toxic Avenger. It is gory. It is so gory, which makes sense. It was so gory that like distributors were afraid to release it, and there's a lot of humor in it, and it's like really stupid humor, like trauma humor. It has the same type of humor that the first Toxic Avenger has, but it doesn't have the wacky dialogue or like comic book written by a 10-year-old dialogue or anything like that. It is more modernized, like, in a way. Like, this is like a big budget version of a trauma movie. And I think one of my favorite gags is when Toxie like removed his eyeball like Mr. Potato Head. That was a funny gag, and the humor worked. Like, it is a slightly more serious movie, but it's still a more comedic movie. It is a more comedic movie, and the film took itself serious when it needed to, and the film joked around and dicked around when it was the right time to do it. This film is a completely new story. It's a reimagining, and this film doesn't have like the forced nostalgia baiting of the original Toxic Avenger or any trauma movie. Like, I haven't seen a whole lot of trauma movies. Like, I saw Surf Nazis and Tromeo and Juliet and those films before, but this film doesn't force nostalgia too much down the audience's throats. Like, it's not a remake, just a worse version of a classic movie like Force Awakens was, or anything like that. This is a new story. Like, it doesn't force nostalgia, but it does it when it feels appropriate. And like, I have nothing against nostalgia baiting if it's not shoved down your throat, and it brings the original song back, and it brings up the original character Melvin Ferd from the original Toxic Avenger. It brings up that, like, the movie mentions him, that character, and so far I'm saying a lot of positive things about it, but I loved the movie. It is a fantastic reimagining of a cult classic 80s film. But I do have one little complaint about, is that I think some of the editing feels weird. Like, I'm not a big fan of the editing. Some of the editing and, like, transitioning to scenes, like, feels weird to me, but it's supposed to feel fast-paced. It's a more comedic movie. It's a dark vulgar comedy. That's what it's supposed to be. So I guess I should be forgiving that. And the film's not for everybody. I would not recommend. This film's not for everybody. Like, it's a trauma movie, so don't watch it with your mom, and make sure if you have little ones, then make sure they are fast asleep when you watch it at night. Like, the film's not for everyone, but this film was amazing. For me, I had a smile on my face when watching it. Like, this film made me happy. Like, also, one thing is, I guess with the cinematography, like, the film is color corrected and, like, it's shot like an indie film, like, on YouTube. A little bit. Which, it could not be for everyone, but I kind of like it that way. It's basically like a YouTube movie that some other person would make, but with a higher budget, which this film feels original, despite being a reboot of an older franchise. This film feels original, it feels fresh, and it may not be for everybody, but this film made me happy. And the Toxic Avenger, that reboot's excellent. And get it on Blu-ray or 4K, or rent it on streaming on Amazon Prime. I rented it for $10, and that $10.69 was definitely worth it. Toxic Avenger, that reboot is fantastic, and I loved it, despite a minor flaw. This is the Cinetroller signing out. Have a good one. Goodbye.